Despite the release of Space Engineers 2, Space Engineers 1 is still going to be receiving updates for the foreseeable future. This week we've received a teaser for an exciting new block coming to Space Engineers 1, and there's been a couple of other teasers recently that I haven't covered because I didn't think they were enough for their own video, but with this new teaser I think it's a good time to cover those as well. Additionally, Keen recently had an event where they invited press and content creators to it, where they showed off a bunch of behind the scenes info for Space Engineers 2, but also they showed off this screenshot which talks about future updates to Space Engineers 1, so we'll briefly be talking about that as well in this video. And finally, the developers mentioned that some features from Space Engineers 2 would be backported into Space Engineers 1, so I guess we're going to have to talk about that as well. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the most recent teaser we've received for the next Space Engineers 1 update. This video begins in a dark room illuminated by red lights, and then an engineer walks forward to press a button. A button that needs to be pressed in a red room? Yo Striker, is it too early in the video to be talking? Pressing the button turns on this new block, and also the lights in this room, so presumably those two things are connected. And then we zoom out and we see this block here, and I'm 99.9% sure that this is some sort of Prototech Reactor. For those of you that are unaware, Prototech blocks are upgraded versions of base game blocks that can only be obtained through global encounters. So you can either get a whole block from a global encounter, or you can get the components to build one of these blocks from a global encounter. And global encounters are endgame encounters with a new faction called Factorum that range from difficult to completely unfair. Check out this video here if you want to see all the global encounters. And also check out this video here if you want a complete guide to Prototech. We 100% know it's a Prototech block as that's in the title of the video. So the question is, why do I think this is a Prototech reactor? Well, for starters, the lights turn on when the reactor is turned on, which would indicate that it's giving some sort of power, and the green glowing spinning thing here, and as we know I'm a big fan of spinning things in Space Engineers, would indicate that this is some sort of reactor. The question is, will this use uranium to generate power, or will it use hydrogen to generate power? Uranium is normally used in nuclear fission to generate electricity, and that's how the reactors that we currently have in the game work. And fusion is a little bit more complicated, but for a video game like Space Engineers that's a bit more simple, it would make sense to use hydrogen to generate power. Because all the Prototech blocks we have currently are upgraded versions of blocks we currently have, I'm going to guess this is just an upgraded reactor and requires uranium, but it's something interesting to think about. And the last thing we need is an upgraded hydrogen engine, so my friends have an even more efficient way to drain all the hydrogen from my base. With this being a Prototech block, it begs the question of whether there'll be a new global encounter to go with it. So currently there's 7 unique global encounters in Space Engineers, each of which having 2 variations or a third variation in one of their cases, which adds up to a total of 15 global encounters. So it'd be interesting to see if this Prototech reactor requires a new global encounter or they'll just slot it into one of the other ones. The global encounters are amazing, some of the best content you can experience in Space Engineers, so I really hope we get some more in this update. There's 2 more interesting things hidden in this video. For starters, below the reactor, you can see the striped line here. Now I know what you're thinking, isn't this just a texture that's already in the game? And that's true, it is. But the lines here are much thinner than the lines that are currently in Space Engineers. If I place down a block here with the texture, you can see that the hazard lines on it are quite thick, but down here they're quite thin. And also it appears they're on the edge of the block space as opposed to taking up the whole block. Keep this in mind for later. Additionally, on the left hand side, we have some interesting pipes up here. They're definitely not pipes we currently have in the game, and you can see at the end they've got this valve or something on it. 4 notches on the valve, Half-Life 4 confirmed. When the power's off, you can see another look at them here, and I don't recognise them. I thought for a second they might be small grid conveyors, but they're very different from the small grid conveyors we currently have. So I'm guessing these are some sort of new decorative pipe block. Considering where the placement of the valve and the pipes are, it appears that the middle of the pipes and the middle of the valve is at the centre of the block space, so I would suggest that this block is too high, which would probably indicate to me that it's not functional and is instead for decoration. The second teaser shows us a new block called the Small Oxygen Tank. So this is a new small block, which is a tiny oxygen tank, which would be very useful for small ships as the current oxygen tanks for small ships is massive, like way bigger than it needs to be. This isn't the only thing in this teaser though. At the bottom, you can see that there's this line going around. It starts over here and goes around, and you can see that this line is in the middle of the block space. It kind of reminds me of the lines you get in, I was going to say in Half-Life, but I'm pretty sure they're a real life thing, that leads you to different sections of the building. I wonder how they work. Are they a block that has a yellow line on it? How do you recolor the line, or is the line always yellow? Or maybe it's some sort of light and you can change the color of the line separately? Let's put a pin in that for now, as we'll see these lines again in a minute. The next teaser is the longest and also has the most information in it. For starters, one of the first things we see when this teaser starts is our hazard lines from before, and also our lines on the ground. You can see next to this Prototech refinery that it has the lines on the ground next to it, and they're also over here by the half block air vents, which confirms for us that these lines are in the centre of the block space. These lines are yellow again, so we don't know if we can recolor them, but the hazard lines over here are a different color from the ones we saw with the Prototech Reactor, so there definitely must be a way to color them. And you can also see that these blocks are a different color, with them being white on the right hand side and with them being grey on the middle. By the outlines around the edge of them, I would suggest that these are unique blocks, and that they have these hazard lines on them, and that you can paint the main block a different colour, but that still doesn't answer how you change the colour of the hazard line. Wait a second, I've just noticed there's another block like this over here. This one has like a channel running through the middle of it, with a darker grey around the outside and then a lighter grey on the inside. You can see there's this curve here, and then there's a straight one as well. What are these? I guess they're new like path or corridor blocks? These ones with the channel in the middle are definitely my favourite of the three, but what they're supposed to be is very confusing. Over here we have a couple of other new blocks. If we start on the left, we have what appears to be some sort of new glass corridor, with there being windows on the side and also on the top. And then on the right of it, there appears to be a glass door as well. However, what's interesting is this door is a different colour, so I would suggest that this door is potentially a different block that goes on the front of this. It's currently too far away and too low detailed for us to see more information, but I do like the design of this corridor from over here, and this glass door looks very interesting. Although I'm trying to work out if the left hand side is the door or the right hand side is the door. I think it's the right because of the green lights, but we'll find out soon enough. To the right of this glass corridor and door, there's what appears to be a new kind of tank. If we come slightly further forward in the video, you can see over here by the tanks there's an explosive danger sign, and that would indicate to me that these tanks are supposed to be filled with hydrogen, as those are the only tanks that explode. I do really like the design of these tanks. I do feel like them being painted in yellowy gold makes them look worse, as they don't have a lot of greebling detail on them. I do feel like if I'd seen them in white or maybe a different colour, they would pop out a bit more, but regardless, they're definitely a massive upgrade over the current hydrogen tanks we have for large grid. Now, this might be me grasping at straws, but I figured I would mention it anyway. In the next few shots of this teaser, there's a block back here, and I'm not really sure what it is. I've been looking at it a lot, and I'm trying to work out if it's some sort of like LOD issue, where we're so far away from it that it hasn't loaded the model properly. Because what it looks like to me, if we go to a different angle over here, it looks like the reinforced conveyor, but the actual reinforced part of the conveyor has been removed. So we've just got the conveyor bit. This on top of it here is a catwalk, so we can ignore this bit here. But it looks like there's just a conveyor that's trapped in the middle of the block. It's so weird looking, I don't really know what it would be. It has the explosive sign above it, and I don't know if that's there because the tanks are behind, or maybe these are some sort of oxygen tank. But still, they're really weird. I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know what this is supposed to be. Now, this teaser is called the Large Grid Small Connector, and so far we haven't spoke about that. And that's because it appears at the end of the teaser. And as you can see, it's a large grid block, which allows you to connect a small grid small connector to it. This is going to be a really useful addition, but I will say, I kind of would like it. You know how we have a connector and then we have the inset connector? So the inset connector is a full block with a connector on it. And then the old connector is that big ugly thing that you used to have to find a way to hide. I would kind of like a large grid small connector version of that, where you can have it sticking out the side of your ship. Because with my small ships, I don't really want to be getting that close to this block. I would kind of like if it stuck out a little bit. Which is really weird, because that's the opposite complaint I had about the large grid connector before. I don't know, Space Engineers fans, we're just fickle, aren't we? We don't know what we want. The main feature of this update is an overhaul to cargo ships. Now, the last time I saw a cargo ship in Space Engineers was when I actively went looking for one for footage for a video, and it took me about an hour, and I found the same one twice. And that was me purposely trying to find them. I don't know how the hell you're supposed to find them in normal survival. Additionally, they don't really do much. There's not really any reason to seek them out in base game Space Engineers. You just go near them, you take out their thrusters, and then take their resources, and that's it. In the next update, cargo ships are not only getting an overhaul to their designs, but they're also getting an overhaul to the way they work. Now, we don't really know what this entails. During this teaser, we see that this cargo ship here drops its cargo, so I'm not really sure what that's about. Maybe it drops its cargo if it thinks it's under threat and runs away, or maybe it drops off its cargo so another ship can come and collect it afterwards. In the last update for Space Engineers Contact, we got brand new planetary encounters, which we didn't have before, and we got brand new endgame encounters called global encounters, but they did not touch space-based encounters at all. So cargo ships, and there are random encounters in Space Engineers, but I can't remember the last time I actually found one legitimately. So my hope is that with overhauled cargo ships, they overhaul space-based encounters as well. We haven't got any confirmation of that. Currently, we only know they're overhauling cargo ships, but considering they didn't touch any of this last update, and that they are overhauling cargo ships this update, it would make sense if they were to look at random encounters in space, if not in this update, then possibly in the next one. But we kind of already know what they're doing in the next update. As mentioned earlier, Keen did a press event for Space Engineers 2, and during that, they showed this slide here, which spoke about future updates to Space Engineers 1. It says, Next update, 1.206, focuses on quality of life improvements, bug fixes, and an overhaul of cargo ship behaviour. Now 206 is the update that we've just been talking about. Everything that I've just shown you is going to be in 206. So it sounds like from this, that my dream of improved space-based encounters isn't coming. Only cargo ships are being overhauled. However, I'm more interested in quality of life improvements. Last time we got quality of life improvements was the Most Wanted update, so I'm going to guess that the next update is probably Most Wanted 2, if the primary focus is quality of life updates and bug fixes, especially as this is something the developers have said they would like to do for a while. The update after 206 is 207, and that will concentrate on enhancing the survival gameplay, adding many new options to the game, including environmental hazards. The only new option here listed is environmental hazards, which would be very interesting to see what they are. We already have weather on planets, but it doesn't really do anything. Well, aside from lightning, but I think everyone's turned that off now. But enhancing survival gameplay is very interesting, so it'd be very interesting to see what they add as part of this. And I'm also hoping that they're going to overhaul all the space-based encounters in this update. Please, Keen, please. In 208, we aim to expand and improve on PvP and gameplay elements. In a video I did recently, I spoke about the fact that there was a PvP game mode added to Space Engineers, and the developers said they were going to update it over time. And then they never did. Admittedly, they had more important things to do, but my guess would be that if they're going to improve PvP, that they might look at that game mode again. But aside from that, I'm not really sure what might be in a PvP update for Space Engineers. They're obviously not going to want to alter the game too drastically in favour of PvP players, as the majority of Space Engineers players don't do PvP. So what could they do that could improve PvP without altering the game too much to upset other players? My hope would be that it would improve and overhaul to ground combat, as ground combat in Space Engineers is horrible. It's not really Space Engineers' fault, it's not designed to be a ground combat game, it's more designed around ship combat. But when they keep adding stuff that requires you to do ground combat, it just feels real bad, like the entire system is rigged against you. And then finally, at the bottom, it says more updates are coming in the future. The developers have said on live streams that they plan to backport some features from Space Engineers 2 into Space Engineers 1. Now, obviously, these aren't going to be features that aren't possible in the engine, so they're not going to add the unified grid system to Space Engineers 1. In fact, there's quite a lot of stuff they couldn't add because it's an engine limitation. I'm thinking maybe the ability to rotate blocks by pressing Control on WASD might be backported. Maybe some of the improvements to Spectator they've added in Space Engineers 2. But I can't think of any major features from Space Engineers 2 that they could backport. It's possible that they could be talking about features in Space Engineers 2 that we haven't seen yet. The stuff from the new survival mode that'll be coming to Space Engineers 2 in the future. But at the moment, it'd be very interesting to see. I will say to cap off all of this, I am expecting 206 to come out soon, in the next month or so, and I'm sure when it's close to dropping, we'll start to get more and more teasers. So if you want to know what's coming to Space Engineers, and also Space Engineers 2, as I'm expecting an update for that very soon as well, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel to keep up to date with everything to do with both the games. And additionally, if you want to go the extra mile like the people on the left have, you can become a supporter with the button below the video.